What's going on, Badger fans? Bad news with Tanner Mordecai. Braedyn Locke is the dude. Who's going to be the number 2 quarterback now? Is this the last we've seen of Mordecai Wisconsin uniform? Let's talk about it on a quick hit. Locked on Badgers.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, Badger fans? Just going to do a quick hit here. We got the news officially. Tanner Mordecai broken hand. He's going to be out for a while. I would be There's a part of me that would be surprised if he plays again at Wisconsin. I don't know if even if he can get back at the end, I don't know if it's going to make sense if Braedyn Locke plays okay to mess around with that. And it stinks. This is the part about football that always stinks, right? My heart goes out to Tanner Mordecai. Came to Wisconsin trying to really kind of help improve his draft stock, turn in a great senior season, inconsistent year for the offense all around. I would say Mordecai included. Now he gets hurt. There's a chance he finishes his Wisconsin career with 3 passing touchdowns and 3 picks. That's wild, considering what we were expecting coming into this year. 25 touchdowns, 30 touchdowns, maybe even makes a run at Wilson's record. Is just not even close. And the injury is going to close the book on that, unfortunately. So that part of it stinks. Let's shift to Locke. There is a potential silver lining here, right? And again, don't mistake it. There's no part of me that's happy Tanner Mordecai's hurt whatsoever. Wisconsin's not a better team because Braedyn Locke's going to come in, right? There's a reason Tanner Mordecai was brought here. There's a reason he's been starting. His mobility has been huge for this offense. That's something that Locke is not going to bring. However, the flip side of this is Wisconsin is now going to get a long look at Braedyn Locke as the starter. And that's going to be invaluable. That part of it is going to be really valuable going into the offseason. Because if he plays really well, if he exceeds expectations down the stretch, if he looks like he can be the guy, that takes a lot of stress out of this offseason for the Badgers coaching staff. Because then you can go into next year with a bit of an incumbent, Braedyn Locke, as your starter, right? And that could be huge for Braedyn Locke. Braedyn Locke can use this as a springboard into next year, and next year's schedule is incredibly tough. So if you can get your presumed number 1 quarterback next year, potentially, if you can get him some reps, some real reps this year, that could pay big dividends down the road. And if Braedyn Locke isn't the guy, if he struggles, if he has issues with his size or his mobility, or if he struggles making the right reads, well, now the Wisconsin coaching staff sees that as well, and it's probably back to the portal. It's probably back to the portal for another Tanner Mordecai type quarterback, because the other options on the roster, you have LaCrue, who's still young, unproven, Myles Burkett, who's from the Paul Chryst recruiting staff, Nick Evers, who hasn't been able to grasp this offense, and maybe Mettoyer will be a true freshman. So if Locke doesn't look like the guy down the stretch, Badger fans, you're probably going back to the portal. You're probably going back to the portal, getting another stopgap while these young quarterbacks continue to develop. So that's going to be incredibly important for Braedyn Locke going down the stretch. Now, what does he bring? He's smaller. He's not as mobile, but I think he can throw it better than Mordecai. I think, honestly, you might see a better thrower. This is a guy that Phil Longo has said grasps the offense incredibly quickly. He's got a great mind for it. I'm excited to see what we get from Braedyn Locke when he's not playing Iowa and he's had a week of being the starter in practice. So I'm very interested in that portion of it. I can't wait to see what Braedyn Locke brings from a throwing aspect to this offense. Who's the number 2 quarterback now? That is one of the under talked about questions here. I don't think it's Nick Evers. It's going to be Myles Burkett, or it's going to be LaCrue. I think there might be a bit of a battle there. I think it's going to be Burkett to start. Burkett is everything you want from a quarterback from a leadership and tangible standpoint. Stayed around and continued fighting and practicing when a lot of the other quarterbacks and players probably would have transferred out, with a new quarterback coach bringing a bunch of guys in, a new scheme. So I respect the hell out of Myles Burkett, right, for staying on the roster and battling. That number 2 quarterback battle is going to be really interesting to me, and I can't wait to see it. And there's a chance, again, you never want to talk about it, but players get hurt. Suddenly that number 2 quarterback, whether it's Burkett, whether it's LaCrue, whether it is Evers, I don't think it'll be Evers, but one of those guys, it's very possible we might see another quarterback down the stretch. That's where Locke is going to have to be incredibly smart, and that's where the coaches are going to have to be incredibly smart. You cannot take unnecessary hits as Braedyn Locke. He took one against Iowa, but he was thrown into the mix in Iowa, so I'm not putting that on him. You can't take any more unnecessary hits if you're Braedyn Locke. You cannot do it. And Phil Longo needs to protect his young quarterback from those situations. I'd said it early in the year, Tanner Mordecai was going to get hurt if he kept rolling out and running. That's the risk. That was a fluke play. Absolutely. He rolled out his hand on a helmet, but those are the type of fluke things that happen when quarterbacks scramble a lot, when they roll out a lot, when they're under pressure a lot. Those type of things happen more. I get it from Phil Longo's standpoint because those legs are a weapon for Mordecai, so I understand it, but there was always a risk there. The legs aren't a weapon for Locke. And you're down your starter. So you have to be incredibly careful with how you use him. Be very judicious if you do want to use his legs once in a while. For the most part, you might see a bit of a scaled back Wisconsin offense. But I'm really excited to see what Braedyn Locke does. I'm really excited to see who that number 2 quarterback emerges and if we might see them down the stretch as well. So plenty more to come on this. I just want to talk about it a little bit. Tanner Mordecai hurt. That stinks. Braedyn Locke is not the guy. I'm excited to see what he can do and potentially springboard into next year. And then who is that number 2 quarterback? Is it possible that battle kind of continues through the rest of the year between LaCrue, Burkett, and Evers? Very excited to see that as well. Anyway, on Wisconsin, definitely not good news. But that doesn't mean we can't be kind of excited to see what Braedyn Locke might be able to bring as a different type of quarterback. So on Wisconsin, we'll have tons more on this coming up later today, tomorrow, and throughout this week. But just wanted to talk about it quickly. On Wisconsin, we'll talk tomorrow.